Two armies, thousands of soldiers, and for 40 straight days, neither one moves, because one man has frozen an entire nation with fear. He's nearly 10 feet tall. His armor alone weighs more than most men. And every single morning, he walks into the valley and dares Israel to send someone, anyone, to fight him. No one moves, not the soldiers, not the officers, not even the king, until a teenager who wasn't even supposed to be there picks up 5 stones from a riverbed and decides he's had enough. You know the ending, but I promise, you don't know the whole story. Stick around, because the real account in 1 Samuel 17 is stranger, funnier, and more brutal than the version you grew up hearing. Here's where we are. This is around 1000 BC. Israel and the Philistines, a rival people group who controlled the coast, were locked in an ongoing war for territory. Both armies had set up camp on opposite hillsides, with a valley called Elah sitting between them like a no-man's land. Leading Israel was King Saul, Israel's first king, a man who started strong but was, by this point in the story, deeply insecure and increasingly paranoid. That detail matters. Keep it in your back pocket because it's going to explain something strange later. And back home, tending sheep, was David, the youngest of 8 brothers, a nobody by the standards of the time. Not a soldier, not royalty yet, just a shepherd boy sent by his father to bring food to his older brothers who were serving in Saul's army. Now let's talk about Goliath, because the text is oddly specific about him, and that specificity is the whole point. The Bible says he stood 6 cubits in a span, which works out to somewhere around 9.5 feet tall, depending on which measurement standard you use. Even the more conservative estimates from older manuscripts put him at well over 7 feet. Either way, a genuine giant by ancient standards. His coat of armor alone weighed about 125 pounds. His spearhead, just the metal tip, weighed 15 pounds. This wasn't just a big guy. This was a walking siege weapon, and everyone on that battlefield knew it. And every single day, for 40 days, Goliath walked into the valley and issued the same challenge: send me one man. If he beats me, the Philistines become Israel's servants. If I beat him, Israel serves us. One fight, no war, just send someone. And for 40 days, nobody did. Think about that for a second. This isn't a story about one scared guy. This is Israel's entire army. Trained soldiers, veterans, the king's own elite men, completely paralyzed. The text says Saul and all Israel were dismayed and greatly afraid. 40 days of silence in the face of a taunt? That's the atmosphere David walks into when his father sends him to check on his brothers and deliver supplies. He arrives just in time to hear Goliath's daily challenge echo across the valley, and to watch grown, armed men flinch and back away. And here's where the story gets genuinely interesting, because David's reaction isn't fear. It's confusion, bordering on outrage. His actual question, recorded word for word, is basically, who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? He's not being brave for the cameras. He's genuinely baffled that nobody's done anything. And his first reward for asking that question? His own older brother tears into him. Eliab accuses David of being arrogant, of abandoning the sheep just to come watch a battle for entertainment. It's a small detail, but it's a very human one. The person who doubts you first is often family. Word of David's comments reaches Saul, and Saul actually sends for him. And Saul's response is exactly what you'd expect from a king looking at a teenage shepherd. You're not able to go fight this Philistine. You're a boy, and he's been a warrior since his youth. David's answer is the part most retellings skip past too fast. He doesn't say, I have faith. He gives Saul his resume. He tells him that as a shepherd, he's already killed a lion and a bear with his bare hands when they came for his flock, and that Goliath will be like one of them, because he's defied the armies of the living God. This isn't blind faith. This is a young man who has already survived life-or-death situations and is reasoning from experience. Saul, somewhat desperate, agrees to let David try, and dresses him in his own royal armor. Picture it, a shepherd boy swallowed by a king's bronze breastplate, a sword he's never trained with strapped to his side, barely able to walk. And David does something that tells you everything about his strategy. He takes it all off. He says he simply cannot go in these, for he has not tested them. Not out of humility performance, out of pure tactical sense. He's about to fight the deadliest weapon on the battlefield with the one tool he's actually mastered. So he picks up his staff, his sling, and 5 smooth stones from a nearby stream, and walks down into the valley. When Goliath sees who's been sent to fight him, he doesn't feel threatened. He feels insulted. The text says he looked at David and disdained him, mocking him for coming at a giant armed only with sticks, as if David were a dog. And David's response is one of the most quoted lines in the entire Old Testament. You come to me with a sword and a spear and a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts. And this detail matters. David doesn't wait for Goliath to close the distance. He runs at him, full speed, because a sling is a ranged weapon, and David needs distance and momentum, not a close quarters fight he can never win. Mid-run, he loads a stone into his sling, spins it, and releases. A trained slinger of this era could generate speeds rivaling a modern handgun bullet. This wasn't a toy. It was a legitimate battlefield weapon. The stone hits Goliath square in the forehead, likely the one strip of his face left exposed by his helmet, and he drops face first to the ground. David doesn't even carry a sword of his own into the fight. He runs to the fallen giant, pulls Goliath's massive sword from its sheath, and uses the giant's own weapon to finish it. When the Philistine army sees their champion dead, they break and run, and Israel's army, suddenly unfrozen, chases them for miles. Here's what most retellings miss, because they rush straight to Kid beats giant. This story isn't really about size. It's about two completely different definitions of strength on the same battlefield. Goliath's entire strategy depended on the fight happening on his terms: close range, heavy armor, brute force. David refused to play that game. He fought on his own terms, with the skill he'd actually built, and treated the giant's size as a liability, not an advantage. A bigger target, slower to move, half blind under his own helmet. And there's a reason this story became one of the most referenced in the Bible for generations afterward. It's not a fairy tale about luck. It's a case study in courage built on preparation. David's confidence didn't appear out of nowhere in that valley. It came from years of solitary, unglamorous work protecting sheep that nobody was watching. The valley just happened to be the first time everyone else noticed. This victory made David a national hero overnight, and it's also the exact moment King Saul started to see him as a threat instead of an asset. That jealousy is going to consume the next chapter of both of their lives, and it's one of the most tragic character turns in the entire Old Testament. If you want that story next, subscribe so you don't miss it. And let me know in the comments which detail in this story surprised you most.